The last enemy ship fell from the sky like a broken bird. Captain Jake Morrison watched it crash into the purple sand of Cthulhu Prime through his cracked helmet visor. Smoke rose from 100 burning buildings across the alien capital city. The war was over. 7 years of hell had finally ended. Jake pulled off his helmet and breathed the strange air of the enemy homeworld. It tasted like copper and ozone. Round him, his Marines cheered and fired their weapons into the air. They had won. Humanity had won. But Jake felt no joy, only tiredness. That went bone deep. "Captain Morrison, sir." Sergeant Rick Barnes jogged up to him, grinning wide. Blood streaked his dirty face. "Command wants all unit leaders at the surrender ceremony. The aliens are giving up officially." Jake nodded and followed Barnes through the ruined streets. Dead Catharians lay scattered among the rubble. They looked almost human, except for their pale blue skin and silver eyes. Some were soldiers, others were just civilians who got caught in the fighting. The surrender took place in what used to be the Emperor's palace. The building was half destroyed, its crystal walls shattered and black with smoke. Allied commanders from 3 different species sat at a long table. The humans sat on the right. The reptilian Vorthans sat in the middle, their scales gleaming under the artificial lights. The insect-like Zilani clicked and buzzed on the left. Across from them knelt the surviving Catharian leaders. Their emperor was dead, killed in the final battle 3 days ago. Now his generals and nobles waited to learn their fate. General Patricia Hayes, the human commander, spoke first. "The war is over. Your empire has fallen. But we are not monsters. Those who surrender will be treated fairly." The lead Catharian, an old female with scars across her face, lifted her head. "We accept defeat. What are your terms?" "Your military ships will be destroyed. Your weapons factories will be shut down. Your people will be relocated to designated worlds under our protection." General Hayes paused, "And the spoils of victory will be divided among the Allied forces." Jake had heard about this part. It was an old custom among the alien species. The winners of a war could claim territory, resources, and even prisoners. As payment for their losses, the humans had gone along with it to keep their allies happy. The Vorthans claimed the industrial sectors of Catharian space. The Zilani took mining rights to 17 worlds. Humans got territorial claims to 5-star systems and something else. Something Jake wished they had refused. Prisoners? Not all of them. Just the young, healthy ones who could work. The old custom said they belonged to the victors now. Jake hated it, but orders were orders. 2 hours later, Jake stood in a processing center watching lines of Catharian prisoners file past. Most were soldiers, but some were civilians caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. They all had the same look in their silver eyes. Defeat. Despair. Captain Morrison, a Vorthan official, approached him. The reptilian's forked tongue flicked out as he spoke. "You have been assigned 12 prisoners for your unit's service in the war," Jake wanted to refuse, but doing so would insult their allies and probably end his career. "I understand." The Vorthan led him to a smaller room where 12 Catharians waited, 11 males and 1 female. They wore simple gray uniforms and had numbers tattooed on their wrists, like cattle, Jake thought with disgust. "These are yours now," the Vorthan said. "Do with them as you wish. Work them, sell them, trade them. The law gives you complete ownership." The word made Jake's stomach turn. He looked at the prisoners. The males stood straight despite their defeat, warriors accepting their fate. The female was different. She was young, maybe 25 in human years. Her silver hair was cut short like a soldier's. Her eyes burned with anger instead of despair. She stared right at Jake without flinching. Most prisoners looked at the floor when their new owners approached. Not this one. She met his gaze like an equal. "What's her story?" Jake asked the Vorthan. "Prisoner 1247, captured during the final assault on the Palace District. She was fighting with an elite unit, killed 6 of your Marines before they took her down." Jake studied her face. No fear there, no pleading. Just cold calculation, like she was planning his death. He almost respected that. "Her name?" he asked. The Vorthan checked his datapad. She won't give one. Just keep saying I am Catharian when asked. Jake stepped closer to the female prisoner. She didn't back away. Up close, he could see small scars on her hands and arms. Battle scars. This was no ordinary soldier. You fought well, he said quietly. My men spoke of a female warrior who led a squad in the palace. Was that you? For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Then the cold look returned. She said nothing. The Vorthan made an impatient sound. Captain Morrison, we have other business to attend to. Will you take your prisoners? Jake sighed. He had no choice. Yes, all of them. Excellent. They are your responsibility now. Transport to your ship leaves in 1 hour. As the Vorthan left, Jake turned back to his new prisoners. The males watched him nervously. They had heard stories about human cruelty, but the female still stared at him with those burning silver eyes. I didn't ask for this, Jake said to all of them, but you're stuck with me now. I won't hurt you if you don't cause trouble. That's a promise. One of the males stepped forward. What will you do with us? Jake had been wondering the same thing. Human law said the prisoners were his property. He could work them, sell them, or even kill them if he wanted. The thought made him sick. I don't know yet, he answered honestly, but I won't treat you like animals. You fought with honor. That means something to me. The female prisoner spoke for the first time. Her voice was clear and strong. Honor is a luxury the defeated cannot afford. Jake looked at her again. There was intelligence in those silver eyes, and something else. A secret, maybe, or plan. He would learn later just how right he was. The transport ship New Horizon cut through space like a blade. Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck watching the stars stream past. 3 days had passed since they left Cathura Prime. 3 days of dealing with his unwanted prisoners. The 11 male Catharians caused no trouble. They worked in the ship's cargo bay and kept to themselves. But the female was different. She refused to work. She barely ate. And she watched everything with those sharp silver eyes. Jake had given her quarters instead of a cell. The other officers thought he was being too soft. Maybe they were right. But something about her demanded respect, even in defeat. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Sergeant Rick Barnes entered, scowling as usual. Captain, we need to talk about the alien female. Jake turned away from the window. What about her? She's causing problems. The crew is talking. They say you're treating her like a guest instead of a prisoner. Barnes crossed his arms. Some are wondering if you've gone soft on the enemy. She's not causing any real trouble. That's not the point, sir. The other prisoners see how you treat her. It makes them think they can get away with things too. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. The males are working hard and following orders. What more do you want? I want you to remember these are aliens, not people. They killed our friends. They destroyed whole colonies. The female probably has human blood on her hands. The words hit harder than Barnes knew. Jake's sister Katie had died at the Battle of New Geneva, killed by Catharian soldiers just like the ones now on his ship. But somehow, looking at the female prisoner, he couldn't feel the hate he expected. I'll handle the situation, Jake said. Finally, Barnes looked like he wanted to argue more. He just nodded and left. Jake found the female prisoner in her quarters an hour later. She sat on the small bed, staring at the wall. She didn't look up when he entered. You're not eating enough, he said. I eat what I need. The medical scanner says you've lost 12 pounds since coming aboard. She finally looked at him. You worried about your property? Human? The words stung. You're not property. You're a person. Your law says otherwise. Jake sat down in the room's only chair. My law says a lot of things I don't agree with. For the first time, surprise showed on her face. Then suspicion replaced it. Why did you give me private quarters? Because stuffing 12 people in one cell is wrong. The others share space. Why am I different? Jake had been asking himself the same question. Maybe because you remind me of someone. Who? My sister. She was a soldier too. Died fighting your people. The female prisoner was quiet for a long moment. I am sorry for your loss. Are you? Death in battle is always a loss, even enemy death. She looked at her hands. I have lost. People too. Family. Everyone I cared about is gone now. Something in her voice made Jake look closer. There was pain there, carefully hidden but real. What's your name? Does it matter? It matters to me. She studied his face, like she was. Trying to solve a puzzle? Why do you care, human? Because pretending you don't exist is easier than treating you like a person. I'd rather do the hard thing. Another long silence. Then she spoke so quietly he almost missed it. Lirelei. That's a pretty name. It means silver song in our language. Jake smiled a little. I'm Jake. Jake Morrison. I know who you are, Captain Morrison. Your reputation reached even our ears. My reputation. Human who never left wounded soldiers behind. Who shared food with enemy prisoners. Some of our commanders thought you were weak. Others said you were the most dangerous human alive. Why dangerous? Because you fight with honor. It makes enemies want to surrender to you instead of die. Fighting, Jake felt heat in his cheeks. I just try to do what's right. That is why you are dangerous. Over the next few days, Jake found himself visiting Lirelei's quarters more often. She began eating better and even asked for books to read. Her English was perfect, which surprised him. Where did you learn to speak so well? He asked one evening. Why? Studied human languages before the war. And during it, I listened to your radio communications. You were in intelligence? Something like that? She was always careful with her answers. Never quite lying, but never telling the whole truth either. Jake sensed she was hiding something big, but he didn't push. Everyone deserves some secrets. Breakthrough came when he told her about home, about the small farm in Montana where he grew up, about Katie, who joined the military because she wanted to protect people, about how empty the house felt when he went back for her funeral. She sounds like she was brave, Lirelei said. Too brave. She volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Jake's voice cracked a little. I should have stopped her. You could not have stopped someone with honor. It is not possible. How do you know? Lirelei looked away. Because I knew people like that. People who chose duty over safety every time. Past tense. The war killed all the honorable ones first. They were always at the front lines. Always. Taking the biggest risks. Jake heard something in her voice again. Personal pain. You lost someone like that. I lost everyone like that. That night, Jake lay in his bunk thinking about Lirelei. She was different from what he expected of an enemy soldier. Smart, yes. Tough, definitely. But there was something else. A sadness that went deeper than just losing a war. The next morning, Sergeant Barnes cornered him in the mess hall. Captain, the crew is getting restless about your alien pet. She's not a pet. Then what is she? Because you sure aren't treating her like a prisoner. I'm treating her like a person. She's not people. Barnes slammed his hand on the table. She's a killer. An enemy. You're acting like she's your girlfriend. Several crew members turned to look. Jake felt his face burn with anger and embarrassment. Watch your mouth, Sergeant. Or what? You'll defend her honor? Barnes laughed bitterly. Maybe you have gone soft, Captain. Maybe losing your sister broke something in your head. Jake stood up fast, his chair falling backward. For a moment, he wanted to hit Barnes, to make him take back the words about Katie instead. He walked away. But Barnes had planted a seed of doubt. Was he being too soft? Was his grief making him see things that weren't there? He found Lirelei in the ship's small library, reading a book about Earth's history. She looked up when he entered. You seem troubled, Captain Morrison. Jake? Just call me Jake. What troubles you, Jake? He sat down across from her.
Ow.
Are you planning something? Some kind of escape or attack? She closed the book and looked at him directly. No? Then why won't you tell me anything about yourself? What unit you served with? What your rank was? 'Cause the truth would change. Everything between us. Maybe I want it to change. Lirelei smiled sadly. No, Jake Morrison, you do not want that truth. Trust me. But Jake was beginning to think he did want it. Whatever secret she was hiding, he was ready to hear it. He just didn't know how much it would cost him when he finally learned who she really was. The space station Harmony Point looked like a metal flower blooming in the darkness. Jake Morrison watched it grow larger through the viewport as the new horizon approached. After 8 days in space, everyone was ready for solid ground under their feet. Harmony Point was neutral territory, a place where different species could trade and meet without fear. The perfect spot to refuel and resupply before the long journey to human space. All prisoners will remain on the ship during our stop, announced Lieutenant Collins over the ship's communication system.
Ow!
This is for their safety and ours. Jake frowned. He had planned to let his prisoners stretch their legs on the station. They had behaved well during the trip, especially Lirelei, who spent most of her time reading or staring out the windows at the stars. He found her in the observation lounge, sitting alone as usual. The other prisoners avoided her, which Jake found strange. It was like they were afraid of her, not just respectful. "We'll be docked for 6 hours," he said, sitting beside her. "I heard the announcement. We stay here. That's the rule. But rules can be bent sometimes." Lirelei looked at him with those silver eyes that seemed to see everything. "You would risk trouble for prisoners?" "I would risk trouble for friends. Is that what we are now, friends?" Jake thought about it. Over the past few days, their conversations had become the best part of his day. She was smart and funny when she let her guard down. She told him stories about Catherian culture that fascinated him. And when she smiled, which was rare, it changed her whole face. "I hope so," he said. "Is dangerous. Jake Morrison." "Why do you always use my full name?" "Because names have power. Using both shows respect." An hour later, Jake made a decision that would change everything. He brought Lirelei to the docking bay, along with 2 of the male prisoners who needed medical supplies. "Stay close to me," he told them, "and don't cause any trouble." Harmony Point buzzed with activity. Humans, Vorthons, Zalani, and dozens of other species moved through the wide corridors. The air smelled like spices and engine fuel. Vendors hawked their goods in a dozen different languages. The 2 male prisoners stayed close to Jake, nervous but excited to be off the ship. But Lirelei walked differently. Her back was straight, her head high. She moved like she owned the place. They were browsing a shop that sold medical supplies when it happened. A group of Catherian refugees was sitting at a nearby food stall. One of them looked up and saw Lirelei. The reaction was instant. The Catherian dropped his food and fell to his knees. The others turned to look, and their eyes went wide with shock. One by one, they all dropped to their knees, heads bowed. "Honored one," whispered the first Catherian. "We thought you were dead." Jake felt his blood turn cold. He looked at Lirelei, who had gone pale. For a moment, she looked terrified. Then her face became stone. "You were mistaken," she said in perfect Catherian. "I am no one special, but the damage was done." Other Catherians in the area had noticed. They began to gather, whispering in their own language. Some fell to their knees. Others just stared with wonder and fear. "We need to go," Jake said quietly. Lirelei nodded. He pushed through the growing crowd, the 2 male prisoners following in confusion. Jake could hear excited whispers behind them in Catherian. He caught a few words he recognized. Princess, alive, hidden. They made it back to the ship without more trouble, but Jake's mind was racing. In the privacy of Lirelei's quarters, he finally asked the question that was burning in his chest. "Who are you?" Lirelei sat on her bed and put her face in her hands. "I told you the truth would change everything. Those people knew you. They called you Honored One. It is a title of respect, nothing more." They fell to their knees. Lirelei. "People don't do that for soldiers." She looked up at him with pain in her silver eyes. "Some do. Tell me the truth, please." Before she could answer, Jake's door chimed. Sergeant Barnes entered without waiting for permission, his face red with anger. "Captain, there's a Catherian merchant outside asking about our prisoners. Says he wants to buy one of them." "We're not selling anyone. This one's offering a fortune, sir. Enough to buy a whole fleet of ships." Barnes looked at Lirelei. "Specifically wants the female." Jake felt ice in his stomach. "What's his name?" "Korvik. Says he represents some kind of trading group." Jake knew that name. Korvik was no simple merchant. He was a broker who dealt in secrets and rare goods. He's the kind of man who would pay anything for something truly valuable. Tell him we're not interested. "Sir." With respect, Maybe we should hear his offer. The crew could use the money. I said no. Barnes left, but Jake could see he wasn't happy. Jake turned back to Lirelei, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. He knows who you are too, doesn't he? Probably. Then tell me before someone else does. Lirelei was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. My name is Lirelei Vorthok. I am the daughter of Emperor Vorthok III, the last princess of the Catherian Empire. Jake felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Your royalty. I was. Now, I am just a prisoner. On a human ship? Why were you fighting with regular soldiers? Because that is what leaders do. They fight beside their people, not hide behind them. Her eyes flashed with old anger. My father wanted me safe in the palace. I chose the front lines instead. The heir to the throne. There is no throne. There is no empire. There is nothing left. Jake's mind struggled to process this information. The woman he had been talking to, sharing meals with, calling friend, was one of the most important people in the galaxy. And she was sitting in a tiny room on his ship, wearing prisoner clothes. Do you know what this means? He asked. It means I should have died with my world. No, it means you're in danger. Serious danger. Jake started pacing. There are people who would kill you to make sure the Empire never comes back. Others who would use you to start new wars. I know. There are people who would pay anything. To get their hands on you? Like your merchant friend? A new thought hit Jake like a punch to the gut. Barnes knows. He heard Corvick asking specifically for you. Yes. He'll figure it out. Maybe he already has. Lirelei stood up and moved closer to him. Jake Morrison, you have been kind to me. Kinder than I deserved. But now you must choose. Choose what? You can turn me over to your authorities. Claim the reward money. Your crew will be rich, and you will be a hero for capturing the enemy princess. Or you can help me disappear before they realize what they have. Jake looked at her. Really looked at her. The proud way she held herself. The intelligence in her eyes. The strength that had carried her through losing everything she had ever known. There's a third option, he said. What? I can protect you. Lirelei shook her head. Cannot protect me from the whole galaxy. Maybe not, but I can try. Why would you do that? Jake thought about his sister Katie, who died fighting for what she believed in. He thought about honor and duty and doing the right thing even when it was hard. Because it's the right thing to do. And because you're my friend. Your friend who lied to you. My friend who survived the impossible and is still fighting. Lirelei looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. You are a dangerous man, Jake Morrison, so I've been told. What do we do now? Jake made his decision. Now we figure out how to keep you alive. But even as he said it, he knew their troubles were just beginning. Barnes suspected something. Corvick knew exactly who she was. And somewhere in the ship, 11 other Catherian prisoners were wondering why their fellow captive had been treated like royalty by their own people. The secret was out. And secrets, Jake had learned, were the most dangerous weapons of all. The alarm woke Jake Morrison from a restless sleep. Red lights flashed in his quarters as the ship's computer announced an emergency. He grabbed his uniform and ran to the bridge. Report, he ordered. Lieutenant Collins looked grim. 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're demanding we surrender Princess Lirelei Vorthok immediately. Jake's heart sank. Secret was out. What ships? 1 Vorthon destroyer, 1 Zalani cruiser, and 1 that doesn't match any design in our database. Unknown configuration, but heavily armed. How did they find us? Someone sent a message from Harmony Point. It went out on all frequencies before. We could stop it. Jake knew who that someone probably was. Corvick the merchant had wasted no time spreading the news. Now, every faction in the galaxy would be coming for Lirelei. What are their demands? They want the princess handed over in 1 hour. If we refuse, they'll take her by force. Jake looked at the tactical display. 3 warships against 1 transport vessel. It would be a massacre, Captain Collins said quietly. Maybe we should consider their demand. 1 prisoner isn't worth the lives of everyone on this ship. Before Jake could answer, Sergeant Barnes entered the bridge. His face was hard with anger. "Sir, I need to speak with you privately." They stepped into Jake's ready room. Barnes closed the door and turned on. "Him, you knew, didn't you? You knew she was the princess all along? Found out yesterday? And you didn't report it? That's treason, Captain. It's protecting an innocent person." "Innocent?" Barnes laughed bitterly. "She's the daughter of the man who started this war. Her people killed millions of humans. And you're calling her innocent? She didn't start the war? She was just trying to end it. By fighting against us. By fighting for her people. The same thing we did." Barnes stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Captain, I've served with you for 5 years. I respect you. But if you don't hand over that alien princess, I'll have to relieve you of command." Jake felt cold anger rise in his chest. "You're threatening mutiny? I'm trying to save this ship and everyone on it. Those warships out there will kill us all. To get to her, then we don't give her to them. Sir, be reasonable. She's one alien against 300 human lives. She's a person under my protection." Barnes stared at him for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Lost your mind, Captain. That alien has poisoned your thinking. Get out of my ready room, Sergeant. This isn't over." After Barnes left, Jake sat alone for a few minutes, thinking hard. The sergeant was right about one thing. If Jake refused to surrender Lirelei, people would die. His people, his crew. But he had made a promise. And Jake Morrison didn't break his promises, he found. Lyra lay in her quarters, sitting calmly on her bed. She looked up when he entered, and he saw she already knew. "How long do we have?" she asked. 43 minutes. Then there's no time to waste." She stood and moved to the small desk. "I need you to get me access to your ship's communication system." "Why?" "Because I am going to save your crew." "How?" "By giving those ships what they want?" Jake felt panic rise in his throat. "No, I won't let you sacrifice yourself. It is not your choice to make." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I'm a princess, Jake Morrison. My duty is to protect others, even at the cost of my own life. There has to be another way. There is no other way. Those ships will destroy this vessel to get to me. Your crew will die because of who I am." She touched his arm softly. "I cannot live with that burden. I can't live with losing you." The words came out before Jake could stop them. Lyralei's eyes widened in surprise. Then her expression became sad. "You barely know me. I know enough. You know I am your enemy." "You're not my enemy. You never were." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lirelei stepped closer to him. "In another life, Jake Morrison, we might have been friends. We are friends. In this life, yes, we are." She smiled that rare smile that changed her whole face. "Which is why you must let me go. No. Then you will watch everyone on this ship die for my sake. Is that what you want?" Jake closed his eyes, could hear the seconds ticking away. Outside, 3 warships waited for an answer. Behind him, 300 crew members went about their duties, trusting him to keep them safe. "There is a third option," he said finally. "What?" "We run." Lirelei shook her head. "Your ship cannot outrun 3 warships. Maybe not. But we can try. And when they catch us, then we fight. Your transport ship against 3 military vessels? That is suicide." "Yeah, maybe. But it's better than surrender." Jake activated his communicator. "Bridge, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency departure. Plot a course for the Kepler Nebula, maximum speed." "Sir," came Colin's voice, "those ships have us surrounded." Then we break through the surround. "All hands to battle stations." He turned back to Lirelei. "If we're going to die, we die fighting." "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone once told me that honor is not a luxury the defeated can afford." "I'm not defeated yet." The New Horizon lurched as its engines fired at full power. Through the porthole, Jake could see the enemy ships moving to intercept. Energy weapons began to charge. "All crew, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. We are under attack by forces trying to capture one of our passengers. We will not surrender. Will not give up. We are human, and humans don't quit. The first enemy shot struck the transport's shields. The ship shuddered but kept moving, Sir Collins reported from the bridge. The Vorthan destroyer is moving to block our escape route. Ram it if you have to, Captain. Incoming message from Sergeant Barnes. He says he's taking control of the ship. Jake cursed under his breath. Security to Deck 7. Arrest Sergeant Barnes for mutiny. Most of the security team is with Barnes. They think you've lost your mind. The situation was falling apart fast. Enemy ships closing in, half his crew in mutiny, and nowhere to run. Jake had gambled everything on a desperate escape, and it wasn't working. Then, Lirelei did something unexpected. She activated the room's communication panel and began speaking in rapid Catherian. Her voice carried the authority of command, the power of royalty. "What are you doing?" Jake asked. "Buying us time." She switched to English. "Unknown ships. This is Princess Lirelei Vorthok. I am willing to negotiate, but only if you guarantee the safety of this vessel and its crew." The attacks stopped. A new voice came over the communication system, speaking accented English.
"Princess,
this is Commander Thax of the Vorthan Navy. Surrender now, and your human friends will not be harmed. I want to speak with all 3 ship commanders at once. It can be arranged." Jake watched Lirelei work, even as a prisoner, even facing certain death. She carried herself like a queen. She was buying them time, maybe even a chance at survival. But he could see in her eyes that she was also saying goodbye. "Jake Morrison," she said quietly, while they waited for the enemy commanders to respond. "Whatever happens next, remember that some things are worth fighting for. Even when the fight seems hopeless. This fight isn't over yet, but it will be soon." The communication panel crackled to life. 3 alien voices began speaking at once, each demanding Lirelei's immediate surrender, listened calmly, then gave her answer. "I will come willingly on one condition. You let this ship go. No pursuit, no revenge against the crew." "Agreed," said the Vorthan commander quickly. Princess said a new voice, harsh and mechanical. "You are in no position to make demands. I am in the perfect position. You want me alive, or you would have simply destroyed this ship. That gives me power." Jake felt admiration and heartbreak in equal measure. Even now, facing capture by her enemies, Lirelei was thinking like a leader, protecting others at her own expense. The mechanical voice spoke again. "You have 10 minutes to report to Shuttle Bay 3-4 transfer." The communication ended. Lirelei turned to Jake with that sad smile. "It is time. We can still fight. We can still run and watch everyone die. I will not have that blood on my hands." She moved toward the door, but Jake stepped in front of her. "I won't let you go. You must." "I can't." Lirelei reached up and touched his face gently.
"Yes, you
"Can? Because you are a good man, Jake Morrison? And good men make hard choices." Then she kissed him, soft and quick and full of goodbye. Before Jake could react, she was gone, walking toward whatever fate waited for her in the shuttle bay. And Jake Morrison, who had never left a soldier behind, watched the most important battle of his life walk away from him. He had 10 minutes to decide if he was going to let her go. Jake Morrison stood in the shuttle bay watching 3 enemy shuttles docked with his ship. The New Horizon had dropped its shields and powered down weapons. The war was over, but Jake felt like the real fight was just beginning. Lirelei waited beside him, her hands bound as demanded by the enemy commanders. She looked calm, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Around them, 20 human Marines stood at attention. Half were loyal to Jake. The other half followed Sergeant Barnes, who watched everything with cold satisfaction. The first shuttle opened, and Vorthan soldiers emerged. Their scales gleamed under the bright lights as they formed a protective circle. Commander Thax followed them, a tall reptilian with scars across his face. "Princess Lirelei Vorthok," he said in his hissing voice. "You will come with us now. I gave my word. I will honor it." The second shuttle disgorged Zilani troops. The insect warriors clicked and buzzed as they took positions. Her leader was smaller than the others, but wore more armor. When she spoke, Her voice sounded like grinding metal. "The prisoner belongs to all 3 ships. We will decide her fate together. She belongs to whoever can keep her," came a new voice. The 3rd shuttle had opened silently. The soldiers who emerged wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets. But when their leader removed her helmet, Jake saw something that made his blood freeze. She was human. "Commander Lisa Chen, Human Intelligence Division," the woman announced. "I'm here to collect a valuable asset." Jake stared in shock. "Lisa." The woman looked at him with no recognition. "Captain Morrison. You've caused quite a stir by harboring an enemy princess. You're human intelligence? Since when?" "Since the war ended and we needed people who understood the real threats to humanity." Lisa's voice was cold and professional. "Princess Lorelei represents one of those threats," Commander Thax hissed angrily. "The princess was promised to the Vorthan Navy. Promises made under duress have no legal standing," Lisa replied smoothly. "Besides, she's technically still a prisoner of war, belonging to the human military." The Zilani commander's mandibles clicked rapidly. "All 3 ships have equal claim. She should be divided between us." Divided. Jake stepped forward. "She's a person, not cargo." "Stay out of this, Captain," Barnes warned. "You've done enough damage already." Lisa studied Lorelei with calculating eyes. "The princess is valuable alive. Her knowledge of Catharian military secrets, hidden bases, resistance cells, very useful information." "I will tell you nothing," Lorelei said quietly. "We'll see about that." Jake felt rage building in his chest. "Lisa, this isn't you. We served together. You believed in doing the right thing. The right thing is protecting humanity from future threats." Lisa's expression didn't change. "The princess is a symbol that could inspire Catharian resistance for decades. Better she disappears quietly, into a human prison, into whatever facility best serves our interests." The 3 commanders began arguing among themselves. Each wanted Lorelei for different reasons. The Vorthons wanted her dead to prevent any chance of Catharian resurgence. The Zilani wanted to study her brain to understand Catharian psychology. The humans wanted to break her for intelligence. Jake watched Lorelei during all this. She stood straight and proud despite the bindings on her wrists. When the arguments grew louder, she spoke in a voice that carried authority. "Enough." Everyone turned to look at her. Even bound and surrounded by enemies, she commanded attention like a true queen. "You argue over me like I am a prize to be won, but you forget something important." "What?" growled Commander Thax. "I am the last princess of the Catharian Empire. My people still exist, scattered across a dozen worlds, and they are listening." She activated a small device hidden in her sleeve. Suddenly, voices began speaking in Catharian from hidden communicators throughout the ship. Jake realized she had been planning this all along. "What is she doing?" Barnes demanded. "She's broadcasting to every Catharian in the sector," Lisa said grimly, "telling them where she is." Lorelei smiled for the first time since the enemy ships arrived. "I am telling them to remember who they are, to remember that the Empire fell, but the people survived. Stop her." Commander Thax ordered his soldiers, but it was too late. The message was already spreading across subspace channels. Within hours, every Catharian refugee, resistance fighter, and hidden colony would know their princess was alive. "You little fool," Lisa snarled. "You've just started a new war?" "No, I have just reminded my people that they are not beaten." The ship's alarms began wailing. Lieutenant Collins' voice came over the communication system. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. At least 20 ships, all of unknown configuration." Jake felt his heart race. Lorelai's message had worked faster than anyone expected. Through the shuttle bay's windows, he could see new ships appearing like stars being born. They were smaller than the 3 warships, but there were many of them, and they were moving fast. "Catharian resistance ships," Lisa said grimly. "How did they get here so quickly?" "Because they were already close," Lorelei answered. "My people have been watching human shipping lanes for months, looking for any sign of hope. Now they have found it." The first shots lit up space outside the windows. The resistance ships opened fire on the three larger vessels, not trying to destroy them, but forcing them to retreat from the New Horizon. "All enemy shuttles, return to your ships immediately," came an urgent transmission. "We are under attack." Commander Thax grabbed Liralay's arm. "You're coming with us?" "No, she's not." Jake stepped between them, his hand on his weapon. Behind him, the Marines loyal to his command raised their rifles. "Captain, stand down," Barnes ordered. "That's a direct order. From who? You're not in command here." "I am now." Barnes pulled out official papers. "Command relieved you of duty an hour ago. Failure to follow orders regarding enemy prisoners." Jake looked at the papers. They were real. Signed by Admiral Hayes herself. He was no longer captain of the New Horizon. "Doesn't matter," he said, not moving from in front of Lirelay. "Captain Morrison," Lisa said in a reasonable tone, "you're making this harder than it needs to be. Stand aside. I made a promise. To an enemy. To a friend." More explosions lit up space outside. One of the resistance ships had rammed into the Vorthon destroyer, crippling its engines. The other enemy vessels were retreating, but slowly. "The princess comes with us," Commander Thax insisted. "Over my dead body? That can be arranged." The Vorthon soldiers raised their weapons. Jake's Marines did the same. For a moment, the shuttle bay balanced on the edge of violence, then Lirelay spoke. "Jake Morrison." He looked back at her. "You have already done more than I could have asked. You gave me hope when I had none. You showed me that not all humans are my enemies." She smiled sadly. "But now you must let me go. I can't." "You must. My people are coming, but they cannot fight 3 warships and win. I must go with these soldiers to prevent more bloodshed. The resistance ships can protect you." "At the cost of how many lives? How many of my people will die trying to save me?" She shook her head. "I will not have that blood on my hands." Jake felt his world crumbling. After everything they had been through, she was still willing to sacrifice herself for others. There has to be another way. There is always another way. But sometimes the first way is the right way. Commander Thax stepped forward impatiently. "Enough talk, Princess. You will come now, or we will take you by force, and kill everyone on this ship in the process, if necessary." Lirelay looked at Jake one more time. "Remember what I told you about honor, Jake Morrison? Sometimes honor means making the hardest choice of all." Oh. She walked toward the Vorthon soldiers. Jake watched her go, feeling helpless and angry and heartbroken all at once. Then he made a choice that surprised. "Everyone, including himself. Computer, activate emergency lockdown. Seal all shuttle bay doors." Warning lights flashed as thick metal barriers slammed down over every exit. The enemy soldiers spun around in alarm as they realized they were trapped. "Captain Morrison," Lisa said dangerously, "what do you think you're doing?" Jake smiled grimly. "Something that's probably going to get me killed, but I've decided I'd rather die fighting than live with regret." He activated his communicator. "This is Jake Morrison to all Catherian resistance ships. I have your princess. I'm not giving her up without a fight." Outside the windows, the resistance fleet changed course toward the New Horizon. Inside the shuttle bay, 3 different sets of soldiers prepared for battle, and in the middle of it all, Princess Lirelay Vorthok looked at the human who had just declared war on half the galaxy for her sake, and wondered if hope might be possible after all. The shuttle bay doors exploded inward with a deafening crash. Tyrian soldiers poured through the breach, their silver armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Jake Morrison had never been so happy to see enemy troops in his life. The resistance. Fighters moved like dancers, flowing around obstacles and striking with deadly precision. They ignored the human Marines completely, focusing on the Vorthon and Zalani soldiers who had come to claim their princess. Commander Thax hissed orders. In his native language, as his troops formed a defensive circle, the Zalani commander clicked rapidly, her mandibles spreading wide in what Jake hoped was fear. Only Lisa Chen remained calm, watching the battle with cold calculation. "Stand down," she shouted over the noise of weapons fire. "This is a neutral vessel." A tall Catherian warrior stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal a scarred face and silver eyes filled with fury. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of command. "I am General Korvash of the Free Catherian Navy. This vessel harbors Princess Lirelei Vorthok under false pretenses. We demand her immediate release. She's a prisoner of war, Lisa replied smoothly. Human property under the surrender accords. Is our rightful queen. We will die before letting you take her. Jake watched the standoff with growing tension. More Catherian soldiers continued pouring through the breach. Soon they would outnumber everyone else combined. General Corvash. Lirelei called out, her voice cut through the noise like a blade. I am grateful for your loyalty, but I cannot allow bloodshed on my behalf. Your Majesty, we have searched for you since the fall of Kithra Prime. The people need their queen. The people need peace, not another war. Commander Thax raised his weapon toward Lirelei. If we cannot have her, no one can. Jake moved without. Thinking, he threw himself between the Vorthon commander and Lirelei just as the weapon fired. Pain exploded through his shoulder as the energy blast struck him. He fell hard to the deck, his vision going white. Jake, Lirelei broke free from her guards and dropped beside him. Her bound hands made it hard to help, but she pressed against his wound to stop the bleeding. The shuttle bay erupted into chaos. Catherian soldiers opened fire on the Vorthons. Human marines scattered for cover as Zalani tried to reach there. Shuttle but found their path blocked by angry resistance fighters. Through the pain, Jake heard Lirelei shouting orders in Catherian. Even wounded and bound, she was taking command. Her voice carried over the battle, directing her people with the skill of a born leader. Cease fire, all units. Cease fire immediately.
Out.
The shooting stopped. Jake blinked his eyes clear and saw something amazing. Every Catherian soldier in the bay had frozen at her command. Even the ones still fighting hand-to-hand stepped back and waited. Your Majesty, General Corvash said, approaching carefully. Are you injured? I am fine. This human is not. She looked down at Jake with concern in her silver eyes. He took a shot meant for me. Why would he do that? Because he is a good man. Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The pain in his shoulder was getting worse, not better. But he needed to stay conscious. Too much was happening to miss any of it. Lisa, he called to his former colleague. This has gone far enough.
Let her go.
Commander Chen stepped closer, her weapon still drawn. I can't do that, Jake. She's too valuable. And the intelligence she carries could save thousands of human lives. By torturing her? By questioning her properly. I will tell you nothing, Lirelei said firmly. No amount of pain will make me betray my people. We'll see about that. General Corvash moved to stand protectively over Lirelei. Human, you will not touch our queen. She's not a queen anymore. There is no Catherian empire. I mean, there is if we choose to rebuild it. Lisa smiled coldly. With what? A handful of refugees and some stolen ships? The empire is dead. Accept it. The empire may be dead, Lirelei said, rising to her feet. But the people live. And while they live, there is hope. Jake watched her transform before his eyes. Gone was the quiet prisoner who had shared stories in his quarters. This was Princess Lirelei Vorthok, daughter of emperors, speaking with the voice of absolute authority. General Corvash, I appreciate your loyalty, but I did not survive the fall of our homeworld to start another war. Your Majesty, the humans will never accept us as equals. The Vorthons want us extinct. The Zalani see us as subjects to study. We must fight or die. There is another choice. What choice? Lirelei looked around the shuttle bay at all the different soldiers watching her. Catherians waiting for orders. Humans confused by the turn of events. Even the alien commanders seemed curious about what she would say next. We choose to live, not as an empire, but as a people. We find new worlds, far from the old boundaries. We build communities based on peace, not conquest. And if others attack us, then we defend ourselves. But we do not attack first. We do not seek revenge for old wounds. She looked directly at Jake. We learn from those who showed us mercy when they had no reason to. Commander Thax laughed harshly. Pretty words, Princess. It is a place for strength, Then we will be strong, strong enough to choose our own path. The Vorthan Empire will never allow Catherian settlements in our territory, and we will settle outside your territory. The galaxy is vast. There is room for all of us. Jake struggled to his feet, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. She's right. The war is over. It's time to think about what comes next. Sergeant Barnes stepped forward, his weapon trained on Jake. You're under arrest for treason, Morrison. Stand down. No. That's an order from someone who forgot what honor means. The two men stared at each other across the shuttle bay. Behind Barnes, half the human Marines looked uncertain. They had served under Jake for years. They knew what kind of man he was. Choose, Jake said to them. Follow orders that lead to more killing, or stand for something better. One by one, the Marines lowered their weapons. Even some of Barnes' supporters began to waver. This is mutiny, Barnes snarled. This is conscience, replied Corporal Davis. One of Jake's oldest friends, Lisa Chen, watched the human soldiers turn against their orders with visible frustration. This changes nothing. My authority comes directly from Earth Command.
Your authority
ends where basic decency begins, Jake replied. I'm taking the princess back to human space. Final decision. No, you're not. The voice came from behind them. Everyone turned to see Admiral Patricia Hayes entering through the main door, flanked by a full company of Marines. The Admiral looked tired but determined. Ma'am, Lisa said with surprise, I wasn't expecting you. I'm sure you weren't. Stand down, Commander Chen. Your mission is terminated. Admiral, with respect, the princess represents a significant intelligence asset. The princess represents a chance for lasting peace, something more valuable than intelligence. Admiral Hayes approached Lirelei, studying her with sharp eyes. Your Majesty, I believe we need to talk. I am listening. Earth Command has been reconsidering our position on Catherian survivors. The war is over. It's time to think about building something better. What are you proposing? Safe passage to neutral space? Protection for your people while they establish new colonies? In exchange, you help us find peaceful solutions to future conflicts. Lirelei considered this carefully. And my people would be free to govern themselves? Completely. No interference, no demands, just neighbors trying to get along. General Corvash stepped forward. Your Majesty, can we trust them? Lirelei looked at Jake, who was still bleeding from the wound he had taken for her. Then she looked at Admiral Hayes, who had chosen peace over vengeance. Finally, she looked at her own people, tired warriors who deserved a chance to become something. More than refugees, yes, she said finally. We can trust them, not because they are perfect, but because some of them are willing to try. The formal negotiations took 3 hours. Lirelei would lead her people to the Kepler Nebula, where they would establish new colonies under neutral protection. Earth would provide ships and supplies. The Vorthons and Zelani agreed to respect the boundaries in exchange for trade agreements. As the various commanders finalized details, Jay found himself alone with Lirelei in the ship's medical bay. A doctor had patched his shoulder, and the pain was finally manageable. So this is goodbye, he said. For now, will I see you again? The galaxy is vast, Jake Morrison. But it is not so vast that friends cannot find each other. She leaned down and kissed him softly. Not goodbye this time, but promise. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me as a person when everyone else saw only a prize. Thank you for showing me what real courage looks like. Later, Jake stood at the observation deck watching the Catherian fleet depart. 23 ships carrying the survivors of a fallen empire toward an uncertain but hopeful future. At their head flew a new flagship, its hull painted silver like starlight. Princess Lirelei Vorthok was no longer his prisoner. He was a queen leading her people home, and Jake Morrison was no longer a soldier following orders. He was a man who had learned that sometimes the greatest victory was helping your enemies find their honor again. The spoils of war had been divided, but what they had built from those spoils was something neither side had expected, something that might last longer than any empire. Hope.